You mentioned he went out on Sunday in a very high quality match, averaged nearly 170. He was averaging 115 halfway through that match. But that opened the door for the man who beat him at the World Championships to win his second title of 2023, Dirk van Duijvenbode. Well, I guess I have to ask, is the next natural step for the aubergine a title on stage, and does that happen this year?
Yeah, I think it does. And I should mention as well our 2 questions of the week on Twitter as well. We asked our listeners the same question, but about both of the title winners of the weekend, Ross Smith and Dirk van Duijvenbode. Will they be in the top 10 on the PDC Order Merit at the end of this season? Well, looking at the poll at the moment, these are running for the rest of the week, so go and have your say. But as far as Ross Smith, 29% of you going with yes, 71% of you going with no, and the results flip the other way for Dirk, 77% of you going with yes and 23% of our listeners going with no. But it's fair to say both of them are in the mix, aren't they? Ross is in that top 16 now, as we mentioned. Dirk is at number 11, and they are the 2 players with the least amount of prize money dropping off between now and the end of the season. So you look at the Order of Merit post-World Championship, still very early days, but Dirk is at number 8, Ross is at number 11. So they're going to be in and around it, I think, and a lot of it is going to come down to how they perform on the stage. And with Dirk, the next natural step now is to pick up that first stage title. He's got 5 floor titles to his name, 2 already this year. And of course, not every player makes these steps, and we'll borrow a word from Andrew Gilden on last week's show, incrementally, as he put it. But his first PDC title was a major, so he's done something that Dirk hasn't done yet, and that's win a title on the stage. And we've seen Dirk come close before. He's got to 3 finals on TV, the World Series finals last year, lost in a last leg to Gerwyn Price, but I think he's going to be a brave person to back against him, ticking that box off at some point over the next 9 months, because he is someone that we're seeing now regularly go deep in these stage events. You look at last year, he got to the quarterfinals or better 6 times on TV and 3 times on the Euro Tour. And in fairness, the Euro Tour, he was in all 13 of them. So you probably did expect a better return in terms of quarterfinals, but he did lose in the last 16 7 times last year. So fell at that hurdle just before quite often. And this year already, the Masters quarterfinals, the first Euro Tour quarterfinals, the UK Open, lost a close one to Nathan Aspinall. That was the last 32. So he's been playing fairly well. And as I say, 2 floor titles this year. That's already equalled his personal best for PDC titles in 1 year. And just looking at what he did on Sunday as well, the 115 average against one of our guests, Cameron Crabtree, followed it up with that 98 average at a 6-0 win, and then to beat Michael van Gerwen as well. And I had a look at that game as well, because Dirk's record against MVG, like many players, to be fair, doesn't make for very good reading. But you look at how he won that game as well, and he did perform very well. Some big shots in there, a 1-2-1, a 1-4-6 to break, had a 11 dart leg in there, a 1-5-2 to finish it off at the end as well. So some big shots, and that's what he was doing in the final as well, the 1-4-2, the 1-4-8 early on in that game with Ryan Searle, and could have been 5-3 down in that final, but comes back, wins that 8th leg, and then goes on a run, 14-14, 12-12 to win the title, and the semi-final as well. Some very good legs in there to beat Luke Humphries in a last leg. And he said in his interview afterwards it was his first weekend in 18 months that he's not had an injury. So that's got to be a worry for the rest of the field. These floor titles, I think they're just going to build up more confidence for Dirk, and I don't think it's going to be too long before he is lifting a physical trophy and not a tablet with his Dart Connect average for the day on it.
Yeah, I fully agree. I can't recall if I said at the beginning of the year that I thought he'd win a major this year. I think I did. I'd have to go back and listen. It's so close to happening. He's now been to 2 major finals in the last 3 years. He hasn't had that same success in the Euro Tour. Now, part of that is because up until the last couple of years, he almost never qualified for the Euro Tour. But as you mentioned, he's now into the seeds. He played in every Euro Tour for the last couple of years. He hasn't gone deep in them, but he's had some really tough losses. He lost of those third round matches you mentioned, 3 of them he lost in last leg deciders. In another, he lost 6-4 despite averaging 104 against Johnny Clayton. One of his quarterfinals, he averaged 105, but lost to Michael van Gerwen. He's played well and hasn't gotten over the line. But he's been playing even better, I think, in the last 6 months, and at least more consistently. We've seen really good performances, which is why he's won 5 Players' Championships in the last couple of years. And we've seen him get hot for short spurts of time. I don't mean like a few legs. I mean for a few weeks. That's put him in that position. But I think the consistency is as what's really emerged. And that's why last year he made at least the quarterfinals in 5 majors. That's half the majors he played in. He made it to at least the quarterfinals, including half the ranking majors as well. He's made the quarterfinals of the Masters to start this year. He's really come on leaps and bounds. And I just don't see how he doesn't win a title this year. He's in the top 10 in averages. He's playing at a top 10 level. And as you mentioned, as things currently stand, he's going to be just outside the top 10 at the end of the year, or just inside the top 10, depending on how things go. But I think he will be in the top 10. I think he will get a title. I don't know if it'll be a Euro Tour. I don't know if it'll be a major. Very well could be both, because he's good enough. And he was only a leg away from winning a major last year. I don't know what more to say. He is one of, is he one of the 8 best players in the world? I think he is. I think he's one of those players who, if we're just saying who are the best, he has to be selected for the Premier League. He obviously didn't do enough to be selected, because I don't think he was even the first person out. He was probably the second or third out last year. And not getting over that line in the World Series final might have been what kept him out, because if he won a major, maybe that would have put him over the top. If he was able to go deeper in a couple of those Euro Tours, maybe that would put him over the top. But I can't see him dropping out of the top 16 of the Pro Tour Order of Merit anytime soon. And if he doesn't drop out of the top 16 of the Pro Tour Order of Merit, what does that mean? That means he's going to be in every single Euro Tour yet again this year. That'll be 13 opportunities to get that stage win. And he's going to be in every televised event. The only one that's not a guarantee is the Grand Slam, because he'll have to either, he might still get in by winning a couple Players' Championships, because as things currently stand, he would be the first player in because he has multiple Players' Championship titles. But if more than 16 people get in through majors or Euro Tours, he would have to win a stage event or make another major final to get there. But everything else he's going to be in, which means that's pretty much 22 opportunities to get a stage title this year. And is he good enough to win 1 out of every 20 events that he's on stage? Yeah, I think he is. And he's playing well enough to as well. So I'm going to say, yes, he's going to win his first stage event this year. Maybe he'll even win a second, because I would not be at all surprised to see him win both the Euro Tour and a major, or to do something kind of like what Luke Humphries did last year and just win a slew of Euro Tours on the spin. I mentioned how he's gotten more consistent, but that doesn't change the fact that he can get hot for a few weeks at a time. And if he gets hot for a few weeks at a time and there's a few Euro Tours, he can do what Luke did and win 3 of them on the bounce. I'm not saying he will, but he can. And if he can, then at some point that will happen. And I think that will happen this year.